Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice Saturday morning over here as we wrap up a pretty eventful week actually near the end there. So I wanted to now come back at it and prepare for essentially the next week to come. As always over the weekend, I'm not too, concerned with weekend price action, more or less a range, maybe a few more tries to the upside, but ultimately I would be looking for an overall range here. And then the fun part likely begins next week as we have two major catalysts, obviously the Ethereum merge, and I believe it's even the same day as the next CPI print. So with all of that in mind, I think it's time to get into it right now. And before we get into it, I do want to reference something. I saw so many comments. Okay, maybe not so many comments, but definitely a few comments on the past couple of videos where people were like, "What the fuck, man? Trap? You're calling a bull trap?" It's like, no, that was a bear trap. That's what happens when it goes down and then goes up again. Like, Jesus Christ, man. Anyways, the internet's hard, man. The internet's fucking hard. Other than that, I think it's time to get back into the price action analysis as well. So let's start it off right over here. This is the 2-day time frame. I believe it closed, yes, indeed, last night. And we did confirm that regular bullish evidence. Now, I think that was more of a formality. Anywhere back above the last 2-day high was probably good enough in this case. And obviously that was, well, closed above. So we do have 2-day regular bullish evidence, I should add. And I would be looking for likely another try to the upside next week. Perhaps it does come over the weekend, but generally speaking, next week is going to make a little bit more sense. This is not just on, of course, spot price action, but also on CME as well, which I think is more of a clean and clear look right here. As you can see, very clean, higher lows on the 2-day RSI between the lows from late June and the low that we just put in, or Bitcoin just put in at that just below $19,000 region right here. That is going to be accompanied by the 12-hour jewel signal that we did identify yesterday and the day prior right here, and also consistent on spot as well. We can actually use both in this case, and it is supported by DMI, which is an added confirmation right here. So ultimately, do I think that Bitcoin's going to try higher into next week? Very, very likely, yes. I suspect probably a little bit before that next event. And where essentially would I be looking towards? Well, anywhere in this box right here between about 21.9 to maybe in as high as like 22.250 or so. But ultimately, I do want to be aware of a few other major turning points on the higher time frames, because there are a few things to be aware of. I do think that can really bleed on into, greater effects, if you will. So first and foremost, maybe not foremost, but first, I'll bring up the weekly stochastic momentum oscillator right here. Now, this is spot price action, which doesn't close today, it closes tomorrow night at 7 p.m. And it will turn back onto the upside with any sort of a closure above 20,200. Keep in mind, however, CME already closed yesterday, which also closed the weekly as well, and it did close above that same momentum pivot, 20,600 in this case. So it will officially turn up, assuming Bitcoin doesn't, just like have an actual trap move here. In this case, an actual bull trap, which I should probably add. It's actually it's quite funny how like these terms get mixed up. But hey, fair enough, man, fair enough. You can't expect it. But in this case, yes, 20,600. So Bitcoin already obviously closed above there. So likely we do start to shift this back onto the upside. And this is why I've been over the past few days saying that, hey, a lot of these higher term time frame momentum plays are, likely going to start to twist up here. Because when you get down to these really, really critical levels, especially like the 2-day, the daily, the 5-day that we've been looking at, it's just very difficult to keep momentum up at these paces, especially on the 2-day time frame. We saw this level tested multiple times, even in the past few months, going back to May, and these marked off some pretty nice lows. Now, these are not like bull market ahead lows, but they are, some nice lows nonetheless. I'm talking about the May lows, and then again, the June, July lows before, some pretty, I mean, maybe not super impressive rallies compared to like, 2021, right? But some decent bear market rallies in this case. So yes, we are going to see that once again turn back up. And then I wanted to get on to the next piece of business here, as of course, with CPI prints coming out next week, Wednesday, we should probably be looking at Dixie as well, because this is going to come into the equation, obviously. And we have a few things of particular interest right here. Keeping in mind that this has also closed for the weekly, and we do see 1, 2, 3 drives of weekly bearish divergence. So in this case, I probably would be looking for this one to come back, come back down, pull back down, pull back. Words, over the next month or two. Assuming that this does play out, we did hit kind of like a major level coming in from, I believe, the highs from many, many years ago. Yeah, back onto the early 2000s. So ultimately, a nice place to be playing out a bit of a pullback. And then, yes, first and foremost, I would be looking for a higher low, of course, as this is a pretty strong uptrend. And, long term, like, half a year, 2 years down the road, I still don't really have any major reasons to believe that this is, going to reverse from here just yet until I get, at least a lower high and then preferably a lower low alongside of that. But for right now, we found a high, very likely pulls back. And then the question of where does it try for a higher low? And I suspect anywhere around, $1.05 to $1.06 is kind of fair game. But until then, yeah, Dixie probably does come down. And does that bode well for Bitcoin or just risk on assets in general? Probably yes. And I suspect that we see that move expedited by by that event next week, the CPI print that is. All right, sweet. So what else do we have over here? Well, let me just actually check on our timing. So we're actually still rather early, so this is good. So I did want to outline a few other things for Bitcoin. So now I have to be like really fucking careful with how I state this. But, is there a potential actual bull trap situation in front of our face right here? Again, keeping in mind that, yes, I do think Bitcoin's going to generally trade sideways over the weekend, sideways within a range. Of course, that could be as far down as like 20,900 to the bottom side and as high as, 22 or so to the upside. Possibly, yes. But is there a potential bull trap situation brewing here? Yes, there is. If key criteria, and I want to be very deliberately clear with this, if this does not happen, which I'm not necessarily looking for it to happen, but as long as this does not happen, there's no trap confirmed to be speaking about. And that would be with any sort of a closure below that last range high, which is about 20,000, 550 or 20,600. I mean, either one of those probably gets it, at least on like a 4-hour closure below there. Then yes, I would be looking at this as a major bull trap, very likely to retest the lows and very likely to make new lows after that, if that were to happen. So I know I'm talking about a little bit more nuanced things here. I suspect that the strong majority, the overwhelming majority of this channel, totally understands that. But just to kind of avoid some of those interesting comments, let's say, I do feel like it's important to kind of say this. So not only that, but, Bitcoin is on the daily RSI, the 12-hour RSI right here, already making significantly higher highs than what we even saw going back to August. So the August highs coming in from 25,000 bucks over here. So yes, indeed, we will still have hidden bearish evidence potential between those late August highs, which were a little bit closer to current price action at that just above $22,000 region or so. So I do feel like it's important to be aware of that. I believe the daily also has potential hidden bearish evidence in play as well. If and only if, very fucking clear here, hopefully as clear as possible, if Bitcoin were to close below, again, 2550 below there, yes, we can start to call this a bull trap, and I would be looking for big moves to the downside. This is all going to be really fucking ugly, but for right now, a little bit of sideways, likely tries the upside next week before that next event. The question is, how does Bitcoin play into that the last range high here, which is about 22,250 or so. Bitcoin start to close even medium-term timeframes above it. I would really be looking for this and most risk assets to start to explode. I know a lot of people are looking at 23. I actually don't think 23 is really relevant at all. I would be looking for a move somewhere between 24 and 25 and maybe even higher than that if that were to happen. But for right now, one thing at a time, obviously. Short-term timeframes, bit of sideways. I imagine as we do let stochastic momentum start to cool off over here. Let's go reference the short-term timeframes, starting off with the 6-hour. 6-hour stochastic momentum will turn to the downside below 21,000 bucks. Obviously, currently trading about 500 bucks above that pivot. 4-hour will turn down below 21,450. Obviously, a lot closer, 21,425. Obviously, a lot closer to current price action. So, a bit of a short-term corrective move perhaps in play here. 3-hour also going to be turning down below 21.5. Obviously, Bitcoin's just ever so slightly below that right now. And hourly will turn down below 21,450. So we see a lot of the very, very short-term timeframes pivoted around that region. Does the short-term try to pull back over the weekend? Perhaps yes. Again, any sort of a pullback, that fails to go, especially below 2550 is just irrelevant. But even coming down to like 20,900 is completely fine. As far as I'm concerned, if you want a little bit of a weekend range, something like this is probably what I'd be looking at. And then we get the real market likely going tomorrow. Other than that, I think that this is a good place to be leaving off on this video. I want to take a second to wish you the best as always. Take care, much love, and I forgot to show my Instagram. I've been posting a lot on Instagram recently, both trading related content and in non-trading related content. There is a link in the description below, and then also Bybit has their promotion going on. It's $1,000 US dollar deposit for $1,000 in Ethereum contract position. That actually ends, I believe, before the or on the merge, whenever that is, which I believe is next week. There's a lot of fine print with that one. Make sure that you check out their FAQ on their website, and you can get that even though it doesn't necessarily say it on the link in the description below. It will award those privileges from what I understand. All right, sweet. There we go. Much love. Take care, and see you hopefully soon.